We wanted to own our own calendars. We wanted to work on things that felt important to us. If we could make a living and do that, to us, that was going to be a rich life.
Do you finally admit that there might be such a thing as luck, and it is multiplied or compounded by all the things you talk about in your book?
It's not a coincidence that some people seem to be lucky all the time.
I would always say to him, like, we put our blood, sweat, and tears into this business for so many years. There is no way that I am letting somebody from the outside come in just because they're going to hand over money and make our lives miserable.
If you had a piece of advice that you'd love on a billboard for other people, what would that rich life recipe look like?
Okay, so here we go. Welcome back to the Rich Life Recipe, where we break down the key ingredients for health, wealth, and wisdom with incredible guests who have mastered their craft. Today, we're turning up the heat in the kitchen and in business with two culinary powerhouses who have taken their love of food beyond the plate and into the world of entrepreneurship. Evan and Rachel Dash are more than just chefs. They're innovators, risk takers, and the ultimate recipe developers for success. With a deep passion for food and a sharp eye for business, they've built a brand that doesn't just serve meals, but creates experiences. Whether it's navigating the high-stakes world of food and hospitality, crafting a winning formula for work-life balance, or scaling a dream into a thriving business, Evan and Rachel know what it takes to make it all work. So thank you, Evan and Rachel, for joining the Rich Life Recipe today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
It's I have to say I'm a massive fan. I have read your book once and listened to your book twice.
Wow.
Maybe, yeah, it's
You may have set a record.
I doubt that. I very, very much doubt that. I think it's because there's so many. Firstly, there's a lot of things that you say in the book that are things I say. So it is purely my ego. One of the things is a moment in the book where Evan, Rachel, you turn around and you say something like, I want to talk about work-life balance. And then Evan turns around and says, hold on a second, I don't believe in that. And then you give him this look. My girlfriend and I have that conversation all the time.
Yeah.
And it's the exact same. She gives me the look and I say, hold on, it's all life. And she goes, but I want to live a fried egg life. And I say, it's all egg. Sometimes it's scrambled, sometimes it's fried, but it's all egg. Let's just make the egg the best egg we can eat. And everyone's happy to eat egg. And then we can work it out, because I'll work on holidays. I'll work 7 days a week. And I love that and for those listening, definitely go check out the book. Now, we're not going to always push the book. Sometimes we'll have people on here where I think the books aren't that great. But this particular book is filled with so many lessons. You've got so many great quotes, like Bruce Lee's "Be Like Water," which I love. Very few people throw that into their narratives. You've thrown that in. You've got moments of Warren Buffett. You've got educational pieces that you've learned from being a fireman. And obviously, we'll talk through that throughout this. But also how the two of you met, I thought was beautifully explained and talked through. But also, and I don't know if you did this on purpose, and perhaps that's my first question, sometimes you'll give a lesson and then 2 chapters will pass in the book, and then you'll almost say something that's not against the lesson, but perhaps is a mirror of what you said. So let me give you an example. In the book, you talk about working in the store, and I think it's Macy's, and you say, I was all about the data. People will lie, people will storytell, they have negative biases, and they follow certain things, but the data doesn't lie. And then, spoiler alert, 3 or 4 chapters later, you're wandering into a Black Friday sale and you're standing close to the register and you're listening to people and you're realizing it's not about the number, that these people, yes, the ideas that you had drove up sales and created these great sheets of profitability, but the people standing in queues are giving hell to the cashiers and themselves are having terrible. I did tell you I listened to your book twice and read it once. I am a big fan. You find out that there's actually more to data, that the data, the numbers are actually people. And there's an entire experience they go through when they purchase something. And I think that links really well with the Rich Life Recipe, which is, what is rich? What is a rich experience? What is a rich purchase? How did you know when you were creating your own company, when you'd both left your proper corporate positions and said, okay, this is the kind of company we want to make, did you sit down and kind of go, okay, here are the numbers we're going to need to hit, and here's what a rich life looks like in a business that we get to create as a startup?
It was very much the latter. I mean, first of all, thank you so much for the kind words about the book. It's a miracle, I think, that I actually finished it at all. And it was, really a 4-year labor of love. And
Wow.
I think I positioned things in such a vulnerable way, which not typically the way that people see me. And part of that was just all the different learnings along the way and seeing those things where you think one thing, and I think it's important that your thinking evolves in that process. So when we originally sat down to create the company and start working together, we had a business plan, which I felt like was just a necessity so we could kind of like pressure test where we were going and understand it. But for us, we really felt like if we could just win the hearts of all the people we came in contact with, we would do really well. And I kind of likened it to, I know somebody who learned how to play golf, and instead of keeping a score on every hole, they either put a smiley face or a frown. And their goal was to just get more smiley faces and keep coming back. And we kind of had that same philosophy from the beginning. And I said to Rachel, if we're lucky enough to actually get products in boxes and get those boxes onto retail shelves, we had to make sure that everybody who took a chance on a brand that they didn't know got something that wowed them in experience, quality, value, and that if we could get consumer after consumer to fall in love with us, get the retailers we were doing business with to fall in love with doing business with us, and get the team who works with us to love working with each other, I knew that the numbers would basically take care of themselves with our basic business acumen.
I love that you said that, because there's a part of the book, again, spoiler alert for those people, I'm not spoiling anything. Go read the book, listen to the book. It's a great book. But there's a moment, which is also, again, counter to what you just said. There's a moment where the two of you, and if I get this wrong, please let me know, you're on holiday for the first time in 24 months and you're in Italy, and you wake up in the middle because you suddenly think, I don't have my arms around the numbers. And I'm not sure if the numbers will take care of themselves, because I've, for the first time, let that slip. And you sneak out of the bedroom and you go sit by, I think it was a lemon tree, and you're in your gown. And Rachel, you leave Rachel to sleep, and you're freaking out because you've had this panic attack. And for those people listening who haven't read the book, this is from a man who worked in emergency services, who is used to putting panic aside and following process. And understanding that actually, if you do the preparation, if you do the work, if you've done the due diligence, you don't need to ever panic, that there are systems in place on purpose. And I wanted to take a moment, and apologies, Alicia, and I'm sure you've got a million questions and I'm just jumping in here, but to talk to our audience about how did that come about? Was that suddenly just oh my gosh, maybe the numbers won't take care of themselves? Or was it actually, I need to be on top of every level of this beast. I need to really own my business. And that includes the numbers, the story, the pitch, what we're doing, how we're doing it, etc.
Yeah, being a former firefighter, I didn't do panic. I was calm, cool, collected. I am at my best when things are going wrong. And that was all about preparation, because you prepare so much and you work with a team and you know exactly what everybody's going to do. And you know that at the end of the day, they have your back. And here I was, starting a business, and Rachel and I do very different things in the business. And it was really up to me to maintain the financials while she was developing the products and managing the sales side. And for once, I was basically performing on a tightrope with no safety net. And my safety net was always that I had prepared and I had my arms around what I would do if anything went wrong. And all of a sudden, I realized that I had been missing the structure that I had in the corporate life that forced me every month to report in on the numbers. Every week, every day sometimes. And I got so enamored with being an entrepreneur and doing entrepreneurial things that I let that grasp on the numbers slip. And I mean, I had essentially what was a nightmare that we ran out of money, and I thought it was real. It was the most vivid thing that ever happened. And I literally had the first and last panic attack I ever had. And I never wished that on anybody. And it was never the kind of thing I could understand. And in the moment, I was so embarrassed and ashamed. And I snuck out of the room trying not to wake Rachel, feeling like I didn't play my part. And I put us in harm's way, and it all came crashing down because of me. And, it took a little while to get my arms back around it and realized it was just a nightmare and a panic attack. But I mean, going through that made me realize that you control whatever you can control, and you don't let that stuff get away from you. And to this day, I mean, I have never slipped back into that pitfall.
I love that. My partner will tell you, when most people wake up and check their social media, I wake up and check my bank accounts. I check every single thing, what's gone in, what's come out, what's moved in. I've got sounds for a cat meowing means that money's going out. A dog barking is money coming in. I have it all. Like, that is really important to me. Alicia.
Well, when we each wake up in the morning, I wake up in the morning and I say, oh my God, this day is filled with possibilities. I'm so optimistic. I wonder where we're going to go today. And Rachel opens up her eyes and says,
I say, what is going to go wrong today?
Oh, no.
What am
That's
I
a
going
good
to
balance.
today?
That's a good
but
yin
it's
and yang.
a perfect balance there. And just, going back to when we started out, it wasn't about the numbers or the financials. I mean, those are important to keep it going. And it wasn't aspirations of wealth. Our aspirations were, we wanted to own our own calendars. We wanted to work on things that felt important to us. And we wanted to work with people that we really liked working with. And that was like, if we could make a living and do that, to us, that was going to be a rich life.
Sophia, if you're listening, clip that. That's the magic moment right there. Clip that part. Alicia.
I think that's amazing. And it's a journey getting there, right? Like, especially when each person has a very different perspective when it comes to stress and anxiety and all the stuff that goes into becoming an entrepreneur. And I think, your background, as you mentioned, being a firefighter, I mean, most people don't realize the high stakes that go into becoming an entrepreneur and owning a business. So I'm sure that probably being a firefighter helped you, manage those anxieties. So first question is to Rachel, what do you do to manage your anxiety? I'm sure our rich roller listeners are curious.
It's a great question. I definitely have high anxiety throughout the day. I wake up with it. I usually go to sleep with it. It's always kind of sitting right next to me.
It's
doing
the third.
Its thing.
It's the we're like a throuple with
exactly,
our anxiety.
Exactly. I would say that over the years, I've learned to turn my anxiety into a superpower. And I love looking at it like that because I feel like this is not going away. It lives with me. And if I could use it to my advantage, it's a very powerful tool that I have. And so I do. And it helps me so much when things come up and kind of creep up and start getting to me. I say, okay, hang on. Like, we got this. We know how to figure this out. We'll take it one step at a time. And I also find that it helps me in a lot of situations because I get ahead of things versus like I'm much more, proactive versus reactive. And I love that because things don't creep up on me. I know it's coming and I manage it way ahead of time. So then it doesn't get unruly. So, but there are definitely times where it, comes up and I have to deal with it. But Evan is amazing. We're together 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we talk through a lot of things. We're in this every day together. So he's a great support system as well.
I think Evan talks about that in the book. He mentioned, and I apologize if you both wrote the book and I'm sort of directing.
Oh, no, he did.
Okay,
he did.
Just wanted to make sure, be respectful. But he mentions that he had read this thing by Simon Sinek, which talked about you want a visionary and you want an operator. And he says, I have the ability to have my head in the clouds, and Rachel has her ability to have her feet on the ground. And that's what you want as a partnership. And I wanted to know, what's that like for you, though? Do you still get to dream, or do you kind of go, hold on, I'm not the dreamer. I'm the one that deals with the reality of this one's dreams?
Oh no, so it's very much a joint effort. He's definitely in the clouds, like pushing, the strategy at a high level for the most part. But I mean, as far as product development and things that have gone viral, in our company, like our mini waffle makers and a lot of other things, like I mean, those came from me. So we were in a meeting one time, and I saw a product similar to it, and I was like, there's something here. Like, I think we can tweak it a little bit, change the design, but I really think there's something here. And this was actually in Evan's book as well. And he's like, that's not going to sell. It's a waste. Like, Americans like to eat a lot of food. They don't want single serve. I'm like, I'm telling you, there is something here. And he goes, all right, fine. Like, if you want to figure it out. We've sold over 30 million pieces of this waffle.
Wow.
So as far as like, I definitely feel like I am strategic just like he is, and I push things forward, but I definitely, for the most part, live down, not in the weeds, but I am making sure everything is being pushed forward. I'm definitely, making sure all the executions happen. I'm in the details. I work with, our management team at a high level. So I really enjoy the place that I play in versus where he is.
And she lets me dream those big dreams, and then helps bring it to reality and something that we can actually execute. And it really, I mean, it's an amazing partnership from that standpoint. But if I had to do what she does, or if she had to do what I do, we wouldn't have a company today.
Yeah, we say we're the perfect executive put together, because it's so true. Like, without one of us, we would fail miserably.
I think that's awesome. And within that business relationship, I'm sure that helps your personal relationship. So what would you say, how do you integrate from one to the next? What qualities are you bringing together in your personal life? Are you still the operations, and are you still the dreamer, or does that change?
It's funny. I do a lot more of the operations in our personal life, and I'm kind of on all the time. And Rachel likes to have those moments of detaching and relaxing. And I try to channel my energy and need to be on into making things easier for her and taking responsibility for things that she might stress out about. So I deal with things that need to get done in the house, and I deal with paying bills, and just basic types of things that that would definitely cut into her ability to relax. I try to do together. We're an amazing chef. I cook, she cleans up. We love to do the shopping together. But I think what it all comes down to for us, and whether it's work or personal, we don't create a lot of distinction between the two. I mean, it's all time together. And we travel incessantly for work, but we always make time for fun and have a nice meal, and to just talk about other things, and to experience things out in the world. But what guides, I think, everything that we do is there's a true underlying respect for the other one, and an appreciation for what they do and what they bring to the table. I mean, I could not appreciate more everything that she does for the business, the relationship. And I think it's a mutual thing. And that's so incredibly critical. And I think that's something that's incredibly unusual for business partners to have.
There's so many, sorry, Alicia.
No, it's so true, because I think when you're in a relationship, most people are not working together. So you don't really know the ins and outs of the daily grind that the other person is going through. But because you two share in that same, mentality throughout the day, you can kind of understand where the other person is. So most people seem to think like working together, living together, the 24/7, it would be more difficult. And I'm kind of one of those people where if you can find the right partner to do it with, I think you get a better understanding of what their day-to-day grind is, because you can relate to one another, and you both understand what it takes, especially in a business. So I think that gives people a whole new perspective on what you were saying earlier. Like, there's certain things that you can do around the house that will relieve her stress, which is huge when you're trying to mentally disconnect. So yeah, so I love that.
Yeah, so many people say to us, how are you guys together all the time? Like, you guys work together, you live together, you're married, you're traveling all the time. And it's so funny because it's all we know. And if, we do something separate on, one day out of the year, which like barely happens, we're texting each other, I miss you. And we've been together for a very, very long time. This isn't, like a new thing.
But I want to clarify something.
Yeah.
Nobody has ever said that to me. They say to her, "How are you with him 24 hours a day?"
I don't know.
People
Maybe
who
the conversation is a little bit like that, but not always. It's usually just in general. Like, how do you make this work? How are you guys not fighting all the time? How are you? And I'm telling you, it's just a magic connection that I'm so grateful that, we met and that we were able to do this every day, because it's the best.
It is so amazing. Like, honestly, I think my partner and I talk a lot about what is rich, what is success, what does it look like. There's a moment in the book where you talk about being in the car and on your way to pick up your kids, and you realize this is success to you.
Yeah.
And to me, that's rich. The ability on a Tuesday to say to my partner, let's go to a private island in Nicaragua and hang out for a week because we sold our business 3 years ago. That's more important to us than if we were scaling our company and being in multiple locations, etc. I say that she's just started a new startup and I've just started a new company.
No, but your story of like selling and then losing and then building,
Yeah.
like we're going to do this one time. I don't think we have another one in us, and I don't think that we could duplicate it, cut and paste, grow another successful business. I think we're putting everything into this, making sure that it has that staying power, because I can't imagine going through some of what you've gone through, Jason.
It's horrible. No one should go through it. But there's a scene in your book which is so funny, because I've never met anyone else that's you don't go through it, but you explain it in your inner monologue. You meet this mother and daughter team on a floor, and they're talking about starting this product, and they're so excited, and she's going to remortgage her house. And my first company ever was a company called OPM, Other People's Money. And it was dead simple. I'd get a retailer to do printed promotional clothing. And then everything that you said in the book is exactly what I was thinking. Mm-hmm. No one would loan me money though. So I went to a loan shark and I did 40% VIG, which is 40% week after week after week. And everything that you said that could go wrong, went wrong, right? Returns, the cost of returns, the cost of placement, 190-day payment terms, all of that. And I'm just taking more money and taking more money. And I read that and I was thinking, where was this knowledge when I started out? Why did no one sit with me and not talk about turnover, but talk about profit, not talk about all the things that'll go right? And again, you mentioned this when you're doing your first pitches to PE companies and everyone's like, but they just raised 111 million. And you're like, yes, I understand that, but that doesn't mean anything. And I say this to people all the time. Just because you raised a bunch of money is like congratulating a chef for buying ingredients. Right. That's not impressive.
Completely.
That's not a thing. Make money from your products and services over a period of time. That's impressive. The longer you can go, you beat the Lindy effect, which is 7 years. All of that, people are, you're in their hearts and their minds. That's incredible. That's what you want to be working for, not how much you raised from some PE company that, exactly like you say in your book, just wants an exit. And that leads me to my question. There's a moment in the book where you're not sure about the name, and people keep dropping this idea, dash, right? A dash of color, a dash of this, a dash of ingredients. And the both of you are like, nope, we're going to China. We'll see you when you get back. And they come back and they present it to you. And this time there's visuals and you can see it and you get excited about it. And then in that same, I think it's actually the next chapter in the book, you talk about how you suddenly change your thinking. You suddenly realize that this is exactly like you just said. This isn't a one-time thing. This isn't a one-time product. This is a legacy. This is something that you want to go on and on, which reminded me of an earlier part in the book where you meet the DeLonghi family. Yeah. And I think about that brand to this day, which people are excited to show me in their kitchens. Look, I have one of these machines and it's incredible. Was that something that just came in time, or was it something that you think both of you had percolating about legacy and how legacy is part of a rich life?
I think we always wanted to build something amazing. I don't think we ever really thought of it as legacy, as much as we want to do something fulfilling. we want to build a great company. Rachel used to jump from job to job because she'd get the Sunday scaries and didn't want to go to work on Monday. And I worked in like really tough corporate environments. And the two of us just felt like work didn't have to be that. And you could still do great things, but you don't have to have everybody living in fear. And so I think for us, the interesting thing about the name, it was more a matter of ego for me, is that I felt like putting my last name on the product when I was known in the industry was this egotistical moment where all of my friends around the industry, buyers at all the biggest stores, were going to say, "Oh, you egomaniac! Like, oh, you're a new celebrity chef. You're this.
You
you're
had to put your name
that."
on the box.
And it wound up, we went forward with it because we thought the brand really worked. And the first trade show we went to, there were two different experiences. There was the experiences of all the strangers coming in and seeing the name the first time and feeling like, oh my God, it's brilliant. I love this. I love the colors. I love the product. I mean, that was so gratifying. And then the flip side of it was exactly what I thought was going to happen, with all my friends from around the industry just absolutely being merciless about my ego, that I would have to do this with the name. And but I got through it quickly, and we're really happy that we made the decision that we did, because it really works well and it's resonated with consumers. And that's the amazing thing for us, is that we're in tens of millions of homes, and we have so many times where we are involved in a charity or something, and then when people realize that there's actually an Evan and Rachel dash, and it's not, that to us is like the most gratifying, is that they didn't realize that the name came from where it did. And we always just kind of think of it as more coincidental, but it does get personal when it's your own name.
It's crazy to me, because when I was reading the book, and you guys have this moment where you're like, no, it's not about the name, and we're going to China and we'll look at it when we get back. I was thinking, like, Evan, are you not paying attention? You stood outside of Macy's finding out about this couple who died on the Titanic, and you talk about the power of storytelling and how that's why Macy's created the Macy's Brigade. And I'm thinking, have you forgotten like the power of a good story and about love and about creating something that's bigger than yourself? And somehow you were like, nope, I don't like this name. Think of something else. We'll be back, in a week or two. So sorry, as a reader,
that is truly one of the main reasons. That was the main reason for the book, is trying to help people steer clear of the mistakes that I made. Because looking back on it, I see everything so clearly now, and so many decisions look like brilliant decisions, and at the time they weren't. They were either made out of fear or out of instinct, but things came together really well, which is the reason that I say I don't want to start another company, because I don't know that I can do it again. And just going back to what you said before about the mother and the daughter who didn't really know what they were getting into, I hated being called an entrepreneur. And I hated everything about it, because when people would say that, I would just conjure up these images of people who threw caution to the wind and blindly like jumped into something that they weren't aware of how to navigate. And I feel like I was this corporate guy, and both of us had corporate jobs where we had to run a business with discipline and predictability and look at all the different factors that came together. And it was not really an entrepreneurial type of mindset. But that said, what we didn't know, and what probably would have stopped us from starting the company, is if we understood the financing part of it. Because having worked for big companies, me at Macy's, Rachel at Bed Bath & Beyond, like resources just appeared.
You don't even think about it.
Right.
Wow.
Computers show up, and furniture shows up, and products show up, and bills get paid. You don't have to worry about any of that. And for us, we started out and we grew. We did $2 million, then $8 million, and 15, 25, 40, 9. I mean, as it racked up, what that created was this insatiable appetite for cash to buy more inventory. So we were buying inventory. We were selling something to a retailer. It would sell great. And before we got paid, they were reordering it. And we'd have to place more orders and give deposits and pay for goods up front.
And we hadn't gotten paid by them yet. And
Yeah.
it was like a balancing act.
So one day we kind of woke up and we had $40 million in the line of credit debt, and this profitable business that was making money, and we would get a tax bill every year from our accountant and say, we have to borrow money to just pay the taxes because we couldn't squeeze money out of the company. So, for years it's like being house poor, basically. We're just drowning in debt, yet we're running this beautiful growth business that everybody's looking at us saying, "Oh, you guys must be killing it. Like, talk about a rich life."
Yeah.
And, we're scraping together money for rent and tuition for kids and things like that, because we just couldn't get the money out of the business, and we didn't want to starve the business. We wanted to keep it growing, and ultimately we found the right the right type of balance with a financial partner. But I think if we knew that going into it, and we had some of those like crazy high abusive loans that were like loan shark territory, and we just kept feeling like we needed to do whatever we could do to keep it moving forward and keep the growth happening. And someday when it leveled off, we'd be able to start to see some of the cash flow that we've created. But that piece of it was the entrepreneurial side that neither one of us really understood what we were getting into.
I think that happens to a lot of entrepreneurs actually early on, because most, I don't want to speak for all entrepreneurs, but most are more creative than business savvy. So you don't necessarily have that, skill set business wise. And since you are coming from a corporation where everything is kind of done for you, it's all new. So that brings me to my question is, I know you were saying earlier that, you made a lot of mistakes. So for our listeners, our rich rollers that are probably wondering, what are some of the mistakes you made that you wouldn't do now if you were going to start again? If you had to start again, what are the lessons you learned to not repeat?
I mean,
maybe just share three.
Yeah, well, I'm not even sure if there's three things that we wouldn't necessarily repeat. Rachel probably has dozens, but I think for me at the beginning, I listened to friends in finance telling me that investors would be throwing money at me, and I didn't realize that I didn't have anything of value, and I didn't understand value creation. That to me was kind of a foreign type of concept, but we also knew enough that there was so much we didn't know about the financial side that when it came time to find an investor, we hired the right investment banker who walked us through the process, helped us understand the range of possibilities, and helped us get to a good decision that met more than just our financial goals, but kind of our life goals and our desire to keep working in the business. So I'd say up front, I probably spent so much time at the beginning being enamored with this chasing the deal. Mm-hmm. And there's probably, for me, it's probably a number of times throughout the company where I've chased a deal like a lot more than I should have. It's like the dog that chases the car. Like, what happens if he catches the car? Like, you don't really want the car.
Yeah.
So I think for me, that was probably my biggest learning is, just I wasn't realistic about the financial side and the way that investing really worked.
It's funny you say that, because I found that quite interesting listening to the book. Who was the narrator, by the way, that narrated?
I did it.
You're great. You're great.
Thank
narration.
you.
It was
Thank
fantastic.
You
I didn't
should
even
tell him what you said about
not
being able to read.
Yeah, it was a horrible experience. I can't read.
He came downstairs. She's like, I've been up there for 8 hours and I can't read.
I'm basically like illiterate. I can't get through. If I strung through 2 paragraphs without making a mistake, I got so in my head celebrating that I made a mistake on the next one.
I thought it was great. He did such a good job.
It's so good. It really
Thank
is.
you.
You can hear your earnestness. You can hear your memory of the moment. There's a scene which I couldn't understand why you had it in the book, and then when you read it out, it made a lot more sense. And it's the scene where you think you're going to your first sales call and you fall over your bag and you hit the tarmac and you realize there's no one there. And I was like, why did he mention this? What is the point of telling me that he fell? Like, no one is there. It has no consequences.
Right.
But then I was like, well, actually, the consequences is it might have internally really sort of missed you about. And then, of course, you arrive and this person isn't there and you've got to meet the salesperson. And I was like, oh, now it makes sense, because when you hear it, it feels like a proper part of the story. But when you're reading it, you just like, he had to make up a certain amount of word count to get through this chapter. So he was like, and then I fell, and then I weighed my bag, and it was 50 kilograms, and I used my expense account. And I was like, well played. And
Thank you.
there was two things on that I thought was really interesting. Reading your book was the first time that I had what people would call imposter. I don't believe in imposter syndrome, but imposter syndrome. There was a scene in the book where you talk about meeting people who are not experts in their space. And both you and Rachel are experts in your space. You know it from all sides. You know, like when you're talking to someone, you say to them, I'm not actually going to give you our product because I realize it's not going to work. You can't do a demo. You can't give us the right amount of space. And then later on come out and they buy from you down the line. But the woman's like, I've never had that before. No one's ever told us why we shouldn't buy with you. And it's because you understand that space so well. And I was reading it and I suddenly was like, I am the total opposite. I was born an entrepreneur. I had to become an entrepreneur. I have never been a specialist. I've never had that real understanding of a niche so well that I can really sort of own the expertise piece that both of you have, you know, Bed Bath & Beyond, Macy's, putting them together, not to mention Lord & Taylor, which is my favorite name for a store ever. Alicia will smile and know why, but moving on. And I was like, that, in some ways, it's so obvious, right? That if you are an expert in a space, of course you'd start a business in that space because you know it in a way that such few people will ever understand your space. But at the same time, I never thought of the opposite, which is if you've never been an entrepreneur, you also don't realize about the idea of not, I don't know the answer, but actually I can go find the right person who has got the answer. I think the biggest difference in an entrepreneur and an expert is an expert goes, I know the answer to that. I know the how. Whereas an entrepreneur will say, oh, I know the who. I know who can solve that problem. I'm going to go find that person and bring that person.
That's huge.
It is.
And I think that's an ingredient for the rich life, by the way. If you're listening to this, you are hopefully going to be in an industry you know really well, inside and out, from different angles and in every single piece. But one of the greatest lessons I think you can learn as an entrepreneur is it's not always how. A lot of the time, it's who. In fact, there's a part in the book which scared the living hell out of me, is when you go into litigation, you get sued, and I remember my stomach turned. I was just like, I hate that whole. I mean, I've been divorced 3 times, so of course I hate all kinds of things litigation. But I was like, but you immediately go to the right person, and you go directly to this person suing you and say, let's have a conversation. And I have to say, off record, to someone that we both know, I recently said some things that were very emotive and very actionable against them. And if they're listening to this, I apologize. But I was remembering your book, and I was remembering the part where you said, I just sat down and I went in with all my information, all my trademarks, all my work, all my distribute. And I said, here it is. And then we talked it through and it was done. And I ended up sending a voice note going, okay, I'm wrong. I should have come in with curiosity. I should have spoken clearly. I shouldn't have let my emotions take over. Thank your friend, Evan Dash. So if you get a thank you from a certain person that knows both of us, it's because of you and because of that book.
And that's not my instincts. So my instincts are to fly. I mean, I'm emotional. I'm passionate. I fly off the handle.
But not in business situations.
No, but there's a lot of times when Rachel and I might be in a business situation and she see, like, all of a sudden I'll get a text that says, don't do it.
Yeah, I'll have to. This happens all the time. I can't. It's either a text, don't do it, or a kick under the desk, or some type of movement to say, like, watch it, like, tread lightly. I know what's about to happen. Like, so
that's great.
We deal with that.
Much better hearing that. Thank you.
The relief valve.
Oh yeah.
That's when a partner really comes in to the rescue.
Yes.
You know. Because I think we've all had those moments where, you know, we just kind of unleash, you know.
And it's difficult to overcome that. But when I think about, you know, all of the business dealings, everything that I approached with humility and curiosity, I got to a great place, far better than trying to muscle something through.
Mhm. That's great advice right there. Huge. So true. The more you have to force something, I think the less it's meant for you.
Totally agree.
There's a difference between working hard to accomplish something and forcing something unnatural when you're trying to make something happen. It
And
doesn't
that was
feel
the whole, yeah, that was the whole story of us trying to find an investor.
Mhm.
Is I was chasing the deal and so enamored by the deal. And once I was invested in the deal, I had to close the deal. And Rachel was like, wait a second, these aren't the right people. Like the financial side may be great, but think about what our lives are going to be. And I'm like, we'll make it work.
No.
I can get along with anybody.
No. I mean, I would always say to him, like, we put our blood, sweat, and tears into this business for so many years. There is no way that I am letting somebody from the outside come in just because they're going to hand over money and make our lives miserable. Like,
right.
it for me, it's all about the gut instinct. Like, I
Mhm.
know when my gut tells me something right away to listen to it, because that is a real thing.
And
And
you probably knew deep down they didn't have the right intention.
always, always. And I would always tell him, this is not the right fit. And I break up with every single one of them because I was like, this is not happening. We're not doing this. Like, we have bootstrapped this for so many years. Like,
Right.
we can keep doing this. We have the skill set. We know what we're doing. Like, let's just put our heads down and continue.
It's hard though, I get it, because when you see it right in front of you and you're so close to just making that deal happen, it's really hard to do that 360 and be like, you know what, not the right fit.
It
But
was like a stake through the heart.
that one decision probably saved you guys a lifetime of misery. I know several people who have started businesses and signed a contract with someone, and they basically lost their business. That person didn't have the right intention. The deal wasn't what they thought it was. And as a new entrepreneur, you're not necessarily reading the fine print between the lines. And plus you're so excited about just making the deal happen. You're kind of losing all sense of reality, and you're in this other paradigm where you're just kind of like, this is great. This is great. Let's just do it. Move ahead. And then everything starts to unravel. And you wish you kind of took more time and kind of proceeded with caution. But it's easy to get, wrapped in. It's very easy to let that happen.
Yeah, I mean that's the instinct. I mean, it's hard not to let that happen, but I was
Mhm.
so fortunate that I had somebody grounding me to look at it and say, this is not right. And we have so much trust in each other that okay, we'll go with it. And I mean, we had some funny stories from along the way of things that happened that just proved that she was right. And we held out. And I'm so thankful that we held out because we truly found the dream partners.
Yeah, they're absolutely wonderful.
There's a fact that's my only bone to pick with you. I have two bones. The first is to my friends who read the book, who all said to let him know that his quote about pivoting really upset us, which I thought was brilliant. I've never pivoted. It's the thing or it's gone and I get something else. But I love that. But my personal bone, I did have one bone, luck. You talk about how luck doesn't exist. It's about, treating people fairly, arriving early or on time, being prepared. But yet there was firstly, I'm a massive believer in luck. I very much so. But also in the book, you talk about luck. You put a presentation, in walks the media celebrity for the home shopping network.
Right.
As prepared as you were, if that person was sick on that day and didn't come in and didn't hear your story and didn't get the show around, that never would have happened. That is pure luck, unquestionably. Looking back now, and of course the curse of life is it makes no sense moving forward. It makes all the sense looking back. Do you admit that there were definitely some very lucky moments, whether it was the celebrity endorsements, whether it was the fact that your Instagram had more engagement than the person, one of the buyers that you were talking to who said that wouldn't match our buyer personas, et cetera, et cetera. Do you finally admit that there might be such a thing as luck, and it is multiplied or compounded by all the things you talk about in your book?
Yeah, so I would say that I don't know that I said outright that there's no luck, but I talked about it's not a coincidence that some people seem to be lucky all the time.
Yeah.
That's what you
And
said.
I think it's about putting yourself in the right positions over and over and over. And some days just aren't a lucky day. Other days you will be showered with luck, but you have to be there. The same way that that executive could have gotten sick and she turned into Mindy Grossman is just one of the most wonderful people and such a champion of Rachel and I from the beginning. The same way that she might not have made it to that show, we might not have spent the money to be at that show. So it's about doing the things that really put you in the best position to find that luck. But also, there are so many people who pay to be at the show and then they sit down and they wait for people to come to them. And you have to really work it to make the luck happen. And you have to be aware and you have to see the opportunities coming. So absolutely, that is a big one. And the pivot thing, everybody picks that bone with me.
It's a great one. The other thing I'll say about that booth thing that you said, which I thought was so good, again from someone ex events, measuring the right data for going to events. Right? Everyone talks about how many cards did you collect? How many hands did you shake? How many people did you get their names? How many selfies did you take? How much? But actually you were like, no. We went in and knew the exact metrics we needed to be able to say that was a successful show or that wasn't. Was that something that both of you just knew from your previous corporate background? Or was it something that you sat down together and went, okay, we're doing this show. What does success look like?
No, that was breathing for us. I mean, we knew that, we understood that. And that was, again, we knew the industry so well. But just to date myself a little bit, when I started in retail, there were 135 department store companies across the nation. Today, there's
like
four maybe. And when you think about what trade shows are like now, instead of like meeting 134 department store buyers, and you're happy if 80 of them came to the booth. Now you're happy if you see 3 or 4, and that makes it successful. So we just came out of our biggest trade show of the year, and people, old timers in the industry, say, "Oh man, traffic was really down this year." Of course, traffic's down. There's no more retailers. You've got these giant behemoths, and you've got to keep your eyes open and make sure that you're doing the right things to get the big ones that really matter into your booth, to have the right meeting and to bring them what they need when they're showing up and ready to give you a few minutes of attention.
I think also people focus on the show itself, and that's not even, to me, the focus. Like, it's great to have great meetings. It's great to have traffic. It's great to have whatever. It's all about what you do from that meeting, and it's closing the deal. It's not like, oh, I had an amazing show. I collected 500 cards and everyone came to my booth and my traffic. It's what are the orders? When are you shipping? Like, let's sell through and continue to ship them and build the relationship and make our consumers happy and love the brand. So I think people focus on the wrong thing a lot of the time when it comes to those trade shows.
And that reading between the lines, it means that I frustrate her because I walk out of a sales meeting saying, "We killed it. This is going to be great." And I completely discount the fact that now she has to follow up with that person 15 times before it turns into anything.
Like, let's high five. You did a great job. All right, let's keep going.
I love that. Like, it's brilliant. But I think that's another ingredient that you shared in the book, this ingredient of celebrating the wins, celebrating the moments, not just when we get it out and when we get paid, but actually let's celebrate it now. We've got this relationship. We've got this connection. We've started something here. We're going to build from here. And I think a lot of people, I have a friend, shout out to Kayla Parker, who keeps putting off the celebrations. I'll celebrate when the deal's closed. No, the deal's not closed, but it's when the money comes through. Okay, not when the money comes through, but when we get our first. No, not when the thing goes. And it just keeps pushing and pushing and pushing. And I'm like, you're missing out on the journey, which is the best part. It's the only part of being an entrepreneur.
We'll use any excuse to have some champagne.
Yeah, we love to celebrate.
I love
so
that.
Would you say that's the food that makes you feel wealthy? Is it champagne for you guys? What is the food that makes you feel wealthy?
Food.
Yeah.
So I mean, from one of the things that I love to cook steak and crab legs or lobster tails.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
Nice.
buy expensive ingredients, but more than going out and having a meal like that, I love to cook it at home and just make a wonderful, wonderful meal for us. Open a great bottle of wine and just sit and enjoy it together in our house. That, to me, that's the best.
Agreed.
That's beautiful.
Nice.
There's a part in the book where you're walking a new employee around and they ask you, who do I report to? And you say, all of these people. But one of the things you talk about directly after that is you ask them about their health and you ask them about what they invest in. Of course, one of the 3 pillars of the show, because what we believe is a rich life, is health. We believe health is the ultimate wealth. If you don't have it, you have nothing. Has health always been something that's important to both of you, or is it something that's become more important with time?
No, I think it's almost that our kids taught us that. So we have 2 grown boys now, amazing young men who live in New York City. But when we started the company, they were, 8 and 10, and they knew more about nutrition and what they were putting in their bodies than I think that we did. And I've struggled with, my weight's gone up and down and up and down. And I think when we started the business, we trademarked unprocess your food. And we said, we are going to stand for healthy as a brand. And that could mean different things to different people. But ultimately, we felt like our eat good, feel good, unprocess your food, simple messaging around eating less food from bags and boxes and more just real food that you prepare, and having the right content to demystify how to do that, and helping people cook these delicious meals at home. And then just finding great time around the table with family and friends. And that for us was really this core health, wellness. And we believe that, number one, we tell everybody, like, number one, you focus on your health. Number 2 is your family, and then work. If you don't have your health, you've got nothing. And if you're not there for your family, what are you working so hard for? If you can't be there for those moments. And that was something that was so important to us. And, our kids, we were involved every step of the way, that in anything that we could be. And even when our oldest son went off to college and played a sport, we would travel and go to all the games. And that way we could get to see him when he was gone from home. And then traveling with them in between, and taking our youngest over to China with us on a business trip, like wherever we could spend that time together. I think they really helped teach us how to live, a rich life, being like with that focus on health and family. And then if you have those 2 things, I feel like everything kind of, like, what could be bad?
That's beautiful. I must admit, and this is a confession moment, I did curse you in the early part of the book, because you're talking about data and how important it is and what's important. And then you go, nothing's more important than family. But I was never seeing my family because I was working 60, 80 hours a week. And I was like, but you're not showing it. Where's the action that you are spending more time? You're not at the work all the time. And, and then later on, of course, in the book, you start talking about like how important that is. And, I couldn't, obviously there's also, again, I don't know if you've done this on purpose, but there's a lightness that comes in the book when Rachel enters the story. I don't know, Rachel, if you picked up, obviously you pick up on that. You're just like,
that's where she started.
Okay. But there's a richness that immediately arrives, not only by the way he describes you. I think you're the first character in the book that he properly describes: the almond eyes, the hair, the way you walk towards him, this character. Everyone else has just been like some guy I met in the office, and this guy I'm just like, I don't know if they're fat, thin, old, young. Right. I don't know anything about them. And then later on, when he describes your lady from the shopping network, he's like, she's beautiful, and the blonde hair bounces on her shoulder. I'm like, that's come from this thing with Rachel. Did everything change? Did you feel like, hold on a second, I'm not alone in this. I have someone in the arena with me doing the fight day in and day out, but also reminding me why I'm fighting in the arena day in and day out.
100%. And I think that it's the first time that I felt like I wanted that. Prior to that, I felt like, I even talk about, my dad was a gladiator, wearing his suit on the train and going to work, and got out of his blue collar outfit into a suit finally, and like that was his like modern day gladiator. And I felt like we're in the corporate world, it was very much you were a gladiator fighting for the resources that you need for you and your team, and you're kind of the protector of the team. This was the first time that I really experienced like we were the team, and there was somebody that was gonna make me better. And I mean that for me was, I mean, my evolution in the last, call it 10, 15 years since we started the company together. I mean, I'm a completely different person, and I've evolved in a way that is so positive in my view. And I feel like I still have a long way to go, but the fact that I have somebody with me who can criticize me in a way that I just accept it and I take it as reality, and I don't try to defend it. And that's a new thing, and I've learned, some great life skills, like how to apologize. That an apology is like what I thought was an apology wasn't such a great apology. Like you don't say to somebody, "I'm sorry you got mad."
That's a very important life lesson, Rich Recipe, right there.
I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I think it's great that you guys have this special relationship, because it is rare. It's hard enough to find a relationship that works, but then in general, to have it also be your business partner is on a whole other level of difficulty in succeeding. So I think that is wonderful that you guys have been able to not only just like most people are just grinding through, right? But you guys have actually made each other better and have elevated to a whole new level. That's something most people can't do. It's just not possible. It's just so hard. So I think it's amazing.
Yeah, and we don't take it for granted. And we realize, I mean, we really do realize what a special situation it is, and we appreciate it, and we don't want to do anything to jeopardize it either. So we have it, we protect it, and we know so many other couples who want to do business together, and we say it's probably not a good idea.
Yeah, it's not for everybody.
Definitely not. I worked with my partner on two previous companies, and she was very much the feet on the ground. I would go into a meeting, I would sell the heck out of it. I'd walk out and she'd say, "Okay, now we have to do this, and we have to do this, and we have to do this." And you sold things. I don't know how we're going to get it done, but I'm glad you're happy. And I'm like, well, we got a sale.
Exactly.
High five. And now when I sort of say to her, "Well, maybe we could work together," she's like, "No, never again." She has her baby, I have my baby. We talk about our babies, but we are very much separate. So it's and I gave her the book, been like, look, it kind of work. Like they may come back. She's not coming back. She's never coming back. If you had a piece of advice that you'd love on a billboard for other people that are on the same path, road, or thinking about taking the path that you've taken so successfully, what would that rich life recipe look like?
I mean, for me, it's just, you got to be purposeful. Time goes so fast. You have to know what you want, understand what's important to you. I mean, really do some soul searching and then go after that, because otherwise you might chase this phantom view of what you think success is, or, for us, rich life isn't wealth. I mean, wealth's a beautiful thing and can help tremendously, but I mean, we know so many wealthy people who aren't happy people, who aren't living a rich life. Right. So for us, it was really, and I think that I talk about that moment when I was fired from Macy's and just completely humbled in what I thought success was. And like my vision of success really changed when I started spending that time with my kids and realizing owning my own calendar and making a living doing what I want to do is, I mean, that's success. So I think it's just not letting the time, don't be caught up in the current, just going with it. You've got to be able to go with it when you need to, but make sure that it's taking you where you want to go.
Yeah. And I would just jump on top of that and just say that do something that makes you happy. Like, it might be hard and tough, but it's worth it. And you want to get up and, feel it and be happy that you're doing it each day and follow your gut. Like I'm telling you, if I didn't follow my gut over and over again, we would be in a very different place right now. So I truly, you believe in luck, like I believe in following my gut in a big, big way.
Yeah. Well, there's something about that, the harder you work, the luckier you get, right? I mean, that's my belief. I feel like.
And we've had a neuroscientist on the show, Dr. Rachel, episode coming up, where she talks about how the gut has more nerve endings than the brain. It is picking up on so many signals that the brain is still trying to put into words, and the gut is saying, hold on, something doesn't feel safe. We're picking up on so many other signals, that you do have to trust your gut. You really do. I tell you a quick side story because we haven't got much time. I worked for one of the biggest hospitality companies in the world. I won't say its name in fear of litigation, but I was very much like you, Evan. I was the best in my area. I didn't get on very well with this person because they were new. And I thought, well, I'm never going to get fired because I'm making so much money for this company and blah, blah. But I have what's called a peasant's palate. So although we had some of the best restaurants in the world, I was given a per diem to go and spend it to get better with understanding food. I did not. But I worked out that if I could just do something irritating at least once a day, I'd probably get fired. And then I'd have this nice bit of money to go start my own company. And I was like, I just have to go a little bit longer. And it hit the exact 9 month, the perfect congestion for a baby and for me to get out. And I remember that same day getting a Post-it, 5:30 in the office, sitting down, and then being shocked when they said, you have to leave. Yeah, I was like, what? What do you mean I have to leave? I'm the number one. And they were like, no, you're going. You're out of here. It's been a pleasure. But what I thought, for people, please go out and read this book. There's a beautiful thing where you are so contradictory, where you're saying, don't burn the bridge. Don't go, yeah, sure, take that. I hated your company. It was always a night. Instead, you end well. You let the person speak. You let them explain their position. You thank them. You walk away, and you still have this relationship years to come. And I think it's so easy with some of the characters that we've got, these bad actors on the internet, through podcasts and other social media content, who are saying, burn the bridges, burn the ships, really make it so that you can never go back. You have to go forward. Actually, there's peace of mind. There's richness in safety. There's richness in community. You also quote My Motherland when you say, if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. Yeah. And I think we need to be reminded of that in an atomized world where we're working from home alone, where we're in single solo relationships, where we're starting businesses as solopreneurs, etc. That actually it takes a community to do great things for a long period of time that change people's lives, just like Dash does.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. This has been amazing.
It was wonderful chatting with you, and we've got to do it again over drinks.
For sure.
We would love that. I will make a trip to wherever you are. I know Alicia's on your side of the pond, but I'm heading over. I started my first American company, so I will be over there very shortly. And
nice.
I love that.
Congrats.
Yeah, I'm taking the congrats. I will be celebrating every single one of these milestones. If you're listening and you're a first-time listener, please subscribe. It allows us to know that we're bringing you the right guests. We're bringing you the right messages. Give us 5 stars because we want to deserve it, time in and time out. And leave a comment, even if it's one word from this episode that resonated, whether it's, I need to buy the book, or I've bought the book, or this is my favorite part, or I completely disagree about a pivot, which many entrepreneurs will. Or actually, I just need to find the right partner, and I think life will be so much better, especially if they're 10 years older. Hint, hint, Sophia, my partner, because I'm 11 years older. Please leave it in the comments. It lets mostly Alicia know that we're doing the right thing by keeping this podcast going. And we hope to see you in the episode to come.
If you love this episode, make sure to subscribe so you never miss your weekly fix. New episodes are released every Wednesday. And if you think this podcast could help someone in your life build their own rich life recipe, please make sure to share this with them too.
Hey, you. Yes, you. I'd like to invite you to something brand new. Something we're calling One Person Empires. Who am I? Jason Scott. You just saw me a couple of seconds ago in that podcast, where we were telling you about a rich life, where we bring you guests to explain how to have a rich life. It's in this idea that we decided to create a community to teach people just like you how to have your own rich life. What is a rich life? It's about doing what you want, with whom you want, when you want, wherever you want. Think of one-person empires like the Alcoholics Anonymous, a place to come to find community, to find people just like you who've done it, who've got through it, who can help you get through it. Because no one is coming to save you. That's what it says. Save yourself. Build an empire. That's what I want for you. That's what your family wants for you. That's what your community wants for you. AI, robotics, technology, tariffs, it's changing the world. But here's a chance to you to change your own world, to find sovereignty, to find independence. This is what we're offering. It's a set of principles and a set of challenges to turn you from entrepreneur to entrepreneur. It's a blueprint we can teach absolutely anyone. And that's what's inside one-person empires. Other people just like you, learning the process, going through the challenges. In fact, I wanted to make it so bulletproof that in our very first challenge, I'm going to show you how to make all your money back for joining. And because you're a listener of the podcast, we've made you a special offer. Simply type in listener to get a discount in the community. Joining the community, have a chance to find out what it's like to live a rich life.